There we go. Hello, everybody. We are back for part two of our conversation with Keri Cooper of Keri Cooper Holistic Therapy. We just had a fantastic conversation out in the worldwide interwebs everywhere about some foundations that we can establish with our teenagers to help them with their mental health. So, Keri, welcome back. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And so let's do a quick recap in case anybody didn't catch the first part of our conversation. You talked about foundations for mental health, including hydration, physical movement, eating well, meditation, and sleep. So, for anyone listening, if you didn't catch that, definitely pop back over to our YouTube channel. You'll be able to dive more into that as we did. But we're talking during this portion of our conversation, just for Parent Tween Village, about sleep specifically. Why, Keri?
Oh, sleep is so important, not only for mental health, but for physical health as well. And, while I've been a therapist for a long time, I will tell you, I always know when a kid is going downhill based upon their sleep schedule. Like you can catch it. I'm like, oh, you're all of a sudden not sleeping well anymore. This is going to spiral. And it always happens because it is so crucial that they are sleeping. And if they're not sleeping, everything gets so much harder. They can't learn in school. They can't focus on homework. They can't problem solve. They can't control their emotions. It all comes spiraling down.
Well, and I see that with adults too.
Yes, yes. And like, think about how you feel when you're on a lack of sleep.
Hmm.
So some people at this point are so used to having a lack of sleep, they don't even realize that they're not functioning as well as they can.
For sure. For sure. So, let's say that we've got a kiddo who is sleep deprived at this point, right? Like as we rounded out that last portion of the conversation, we were talking about the me's of yesteryear. The I'm busy, but I enjoy all the things I do. I was a band kid. Music has been my life for a very, very long time. There were a lot of demands on my time, and I was an overachiever academically, partially because my parents, largely my mom, pushed me on those things. I was expected to get good grades. That was my job, as it were. And there were just a lot of demands. I wasn't getting home until 5 and 6 o'clock, and then I had homework and I had practice, and that was on a good day, a day I didn't have after school rehearsal and whatnot. So, we've got these kids with all the things. I know one of the things you're going to say is they're overscheduled. Where do we even start with that? And how do we start with or how do we execute a transition to help them with better sleep?
Right. And I think you have to back up a little with that one, right? So if we know our child is sleep deprived, the first thing to do is to almost say, okay, listen, we're going to cut you off at this time. You need to be asleep at this time. And let's see then how you function the next few days. Because a lot of the times, if you just cut it off and they still have stuff to do and they're going to freak out, and that's okay. But if you do that for a few days and all of a sudden they start getting sleep, they may actually be able to handle their entire schedule. So before you start cutting back on that schedule, if they're just getting sleep, they're going to be able to learn better. Homework will probably take less time. So you may actually see a shift right there and go, oh, okay, now this is working. But if it's still not working, if they're still not getting everything done, chances are they have too much on their plate. So you have to say, what can we scale back on? Or with homework, can it just be good enough? Does it need to be perfect? A lot of my really bright kids overstudy. They
Hmm.
don't need to spend 3 hours, they could spend two. They don't know when enough is enough. And a lot of that goes back to the confidence they have. When do you know you've done enough? And that's a much larger conversation about confidence in children and how they can know that they are not defined by their grades. And that's great that they want to get good grades. But again, a lot of them are overdoing it when we talk about studying. They don't need to spend that much time.
Hmm. And oh man, that's just like a Pandora's box. I can see
Yeah.
us a whole other conversation, right? Because I think back to my day, part of what I recall is that it wasn't ever enough because my mom drove me so hard.
Yeah.
You know, I remember my freshman year of high school, I was when they still did school rankings, and some schools do, some schools don't now. I was identified freshman year as being first in my class, and by the time I graduated, I had dropped all the way to seventh. And the response I got from my mom was, "Well, seventh is good, but why weren't you first?"
And
And
isn't that so hard to hear?
and I bring that up because I know I'm not alone on the receiving end of that. I know that kids today, still receive that kind of drive from their parents, or their friends, their peer group. And I'm wondering if we can address that in terms of parental expectations for them. How do we manage that? Yes, grades are important. Yes, if you expect your kid to get into college, yes, grades are a piece of that. What's your
Mhm.
take on that globally, though?
I think we have to start realizing that grades do not determine success. And I think as parents, lots of times we're like, oh, well, if they're an A student, they're going to be fine. That's not the case. There is actually no research that is showing that academic grades result in adult success. So, one is that the grades do not define your child. They do not define whether or not you're doing a good job as a parent. It does not define whether or not your child's going to be okay in life. Because as
Hmm.
parents, that's our fear. Are they going to be okay? Are they
Sure.
going to be? But again, when they're really driving themselves crazy over grades and think that grades define them, we've lost the bigger picture here. They are not defined by their grades. They're defined as, who they are as a human being.
Hmm.
And the reality is, at this point in the game, if they are passing, they will go to college. And that's the reality. If you could pay, especially, your kid's going to college.
Hmm.
And then, of course, there's that whole social of, oh, well, what's the college ranked? Is it a good college? And again, there's no such thing as a good college. It is what is the best fit for your child.
Hmm.
So I think it's a different way of looking at it and thinking and feeling about it. There's just so much more to life than grades. And I see the kids who are the straight A students, all the AP classes, and they go to their, very quite amazing schools, and then they fail out. And it's not because of academics, it's because they can't deal and they can't handle it.
Right.
And your child's mental health is worth so much more than what their grades are.
Well, and it's extreme, but it's like, great, God forbid we push the kid to the brink, or the kid pushes themselves, or society pushes them, or whatever it is, right? Are we going to be talking about what a fantastic student they were? God forbid, right?
Right.
That's not what we say at end game,
Mhm.
and I mean, not to take it morbid, but that's a big driving factor of what we do at Parent Tween Connection is we have to have kids alive and mentally stable before any of the rest of this matters.
Right. And listen, there are
So,
where academics just come easier to them.
sure.
There's other kids that are struggling more. And especially those kids, parents need realistic expectations. You can't be telling these kids to get straight A's. It's not going to happen.
Hmm.
And that's okay.
Hmm. Absolutely. All right, so circling back to sleep, because
Yeah.
clearly you and I could talk about all the things all day long when it comes to mental health. So take a step back, say like, hey, let's try it for a week. Just be done. It 1 week isn't going to kill your GPA. Let's see how things adapt when you start getting better sleep. And if we find that that is sufficient, great, we're good. If not,
Yes.
then we start cutting back a little bit. What if we have a kid like myself again back in the day, where like, great, you cut me off, but I'm gonna sit there ruminating about all the things I haven't gotten done. I can't get to sleep. Like, it's one thing to tell me to turn the lights off, but if my brain won't shut up, what the heck? Like, how do we actually help them get that sleep once we've put that boundary of lights out?
Right. And that comes back to having a really big conversation with your child about why you're doing this, about how they're actually going to be more focused in school and be able to take in that information, how anything left on their to-do list they could put on tomorrow's to-do list. And also, telling them maybe do a little bit of guided meditation before bed to stop that brain from going, going, going.
Mm-hmm.
But there may be a few nights where your child doesn't sleep great. It may take a few more nights to get into this rhythm and this pattern. And that's just the reality. But again, at some point, you need to shift and get into a good pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Summer is also a great time to do this, by the way, to
Mm-hmm.
start really having a very routine, bedtime, wake time.
Well, and what's your take? One of the interviews we did, oh my gosh, this is going back a couple of years, is with a woman who actually influenced legislation out in California about high school start times.
Yes.
Talk to me
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
So actually, I'm in New Jersey, and a few of our high schools recently this year have started later. The research is there. Kids really should not be waking up as early as what they're waking up. It's like not normal for, their body. So I do believe that they should be starting later. Absolutely. To have a kid wake up at 6 in the morning, I think is torture.
Yeah, well, and can you speak a little bit to why that is for parents who aren't familiar with that research?
Yes. So your child's body, first of all, teenagers need more sleep
Right.
than adults or even like middle schoolers. So their body rhythm and how much REM sleep they need and how many cycles they need to be going through, they need a longer sleep. And they are not early risers, and that is okay and
Mhm.
normal. So
Right.
it's like they're supposed to be waking up a little bit later. Just like toddlers are supposed to be napping. That's normal at the toddler age.
Hmm.
And toddlers also, as we all know, wake up really, really early. And that is normal.
Hmm.
Sleep later. That is normal developmentally.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is when they're off for the summer, which we're approaching here, right? Is
Yes.
don't like ride them too hard for being up later and getting up a little bit later during the summer, but then getting like to your point of like as we get ready for back to school, start getting into some kind of a consistent rhythm, a couple of weeks. How long would you say that it takes to really get to establish a good sleep pattern?
I would say at least 2 weeks,
Okay.
sometimes three. So I'm also a sleep coach as well for adults. And what I do is a 30-day program, but adults normally come with more issues when it comes to sleep than teenagers do.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Okay. Any other thoughts for parents relative to sleep and how to adjust and help their teenagers get more and get better sleep?
It's also, parents need to be sleeping. We have to lead by example, and we need to set the example that sleep is important and that we are going to put up our own boundaries and say no to things in order to get our sleep for ourselves. My kids always joke that as a family, we are always the first ones to leave a party. And they're always like, why are we leaving so early? I'm like, I need sleep. I need sleep. I want to go home. I want to go to bed.
Hmm.
And my kids know, like, it's a priority here.
Hmm.
So
Awesome.
set
Say that again.
up that priority of sleep.
It's interesting. My brain, in typical ADHD fashion, just went down a rabbit hole in my own head as you were speaking. Um, that being a parent must be the single most impactful personal development journey on the face of the planet because it really tests your capacity to be the person that you want to be to demonstrate for your kids who you want them to become.
Yes. All of my positive changes have been made really when I was about to become a mom. And I was like, wait a second, because I ate horrendously. I
Hmm.
didn't drink any water. I didn't exercise. All the things I tell you you need to do, I was not doing. And I was, by the way, a miserable teenager. I wish I had this information when I was a teenager.
Sure.
It was only when I was about to have my first that I was like, I think I need to start eating better. And that's where I started. And then it was like, I need to be hydrated. And all of those have come from being a parent and wanting to demonstrate to my kids what I want to see in them.
Hmm. That's awesome. I think that right there might be the golden nugget of so many conversations is we have to be the people we want to again if you want to make a change, look at the man in the mirror, as Michael Jackson put it, right? Back in our day, that it's up to us to demonstrate that they will follow and they're paying attention. They see a lot of things.
They see everything,
Mm.
everything. They are so observant.
Yeah, they are. Awesome. All right, Keri, thank you so much for joining us. For folks tuning in, if you can see that, Keri's support can benefit you, you can find her at Keri Cooper Holistic Therapy. It's Keri Cooper Holistic Therapy.com. Background in mental health, obviously also a sleep coach. I know a few adults who could probably use that. Keri, any other thoughts before we wrap up this portion for our Parent Tween Village members?
It's just, it's not easy out there. So give yourself grace and understand that you're not going to be perfect. Nobody
For
is.
sure. For sure. Awesome. Thank you, Keri. Appreciate your time. And folks, make sure that you tune in and catch all of our episodes of Parent Tween Village Conversations. Thank you.